Well, have you been watching all the stuff on the networks about what they're digging up, what happened in 2016 against Donald Trump and, well, America, when you think about it? What, you haven't seen it? Well, that's because the ABC, NBC, CBS, the alphabet networks are not covering this. They don't want to cover it in any way, shape, or form because they were involved. And if it gets covered by them, they're telling on themselves. So let me tell you what's been going on, what we have learned, what Tulsi Gabbard, the head of the DNI, is starting to uncover, especially when they found at the FBI bags of burned documents, classified documents, hidden in a room in the FBI that contain all sorts of salacious details that the people who put those in the burn bags was hoping, well, they'd be burned. Here's the deal. Those burn bags have tags on them. They know exactly where those burn bags came from, whose office, whose floor, whatever. And why those burn bags, the contents weren't burned, that's an interesting story. We don't know yet. But they're learning stuff, and stuff is coming out. And previously classified stuff is coming out. So here's what we're going back to. Let's take us back to 2016. Back in 2016, a big scandal had erupted involving Hillary Clinton, who was running for president against Donald Trump. And she had a big email scandal about having an email server in her house, keeping top secret things on there. It looked pretty bad. That's not a place you put top secret stuff, an email server in your house. Well, that was a scandal. She wanted to go away, and they had to figure out, how do we divert this scandal onto Trump? We got to get him on something. So one of her assistants, I think her name was Julie, they come up with this plan. Hey, let's say that Russians and Trump are in bed together. Yeah, let's come up with something. Well, that was the way to divert attention away from Hillary's problem and put it over onto Donald Trump. Now, so let's go on into back into July of 2016. The NSA, now the NSA listens to stuff. They got listening posts all over the world. They hear stuff. They listen in for everything. They tap every frequency, everything they can tap into, because they sneak in learning stuff. That's what the NSA does. Well, what happened was they ended up receiving a document from Norway, of all places. Apparently, Norway was able to tap into the Russians, and they discovered that the Russians had tapped into the DNC server. I know it sounds kind of a roundabout circle. So the Norway taps into Russia. They find out Russia had tapped into the DNC because the DNC admits they were tapped, and learned a whole lot of stuff about Hillary. Now, here's the problem. All that information is sitting out there, and that information is at the NSC. It's in the secret squirrel organization, stuff about Hillary. Now, the problem is, well, the folks in the Hillary party and all those folks in that particular organization trying to get her elected, hey, we got to keep this stuff quiet. We can't say anything, and we need to not talk about anything. So, but the whole plan was to link Trump to the Russians. That was the plan, and they were going to work on that plan. Now, Mr. Brennan, who was John Brennan was the head of the CIA. So remember, those are the secret squirrel people. So he knew what was going on, and he went in to brief Obama, president, about what Russia knew about Hillary. And how do we know that's legit? Because they have the notes that he wrote, his handwritten notes as evidence, and it also matches with Obama's schedule. Everything matches up. They have the evidence. So now, forward intel on Hillary, the Russians have, gets really interesting. Now, Mr. Brennan was questioned in Congress about that in a hearing in front of Congress, in front of Matt Gaetz in 2023, and he remembers nothing. Has a strange lapse of memory, doesn't under anything, but he was ultimately interviewed by the John Brennan for his investigation. Remember, special counsel, 8-hour interview. That was secret. Looks like that's going to be released. You're going to find out what's going on. So here's what happens. Now, an Australian diplomat by the name of Alexander Donner, who's very close with the Clintons, contacts the FBI and he says, hey, he knows that Trump is working with Russia. Really? Guy from Australia tells the FBI. And that results in Mr. Comey, head of the FBI, opening up the investigation, Crossfire Hurricane. Crossfire Hurricane, they start that investigation based upon, well, virtually nothing. But remember, there's a dossier coming in here. That's where it gets really interesting. So all this stuff happens. People are starting to get briefed on things going on. And right after the Obama gets notified about a bunch of stuff, well, suddenly he wants to call a meeting. He wants to call a meeting of the National Security Council. Let's all get together, folks. And the top people attended this meeting. They attended as the Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and a whole bunch of other folks to investigate. Here's the thing: investigate Trump and the Russians. That meeting was called back in July. This is where we're going. This is where we're learning stuff, things we didn't know. So what happens is here we have that the dossier that shows up. Remember that one from Hillary's campaign? Shows up into the FBI from Perkins Coie, the law firm. Well, that ends up being put into a FISA report. They go to a judge with a fake report they knew was fake, and they put it in, say to the judge, hey, we need to get this wiretap on Carter Page, which they did, knowing it was false. Now, all of this stuff is going on before the election, right? Well, finally the election comes along, but everybody thinks that Hillary's going to win this thing in a walk. She's going to win, no problem. She's going to win. Problem is, she didn't. That's right. Trump won. Well, so here's the problem. You got Trump winning. You had the email scandals with Hillary. They had all the things and saying Trump is still guilty. Trump is still guilty. The dossier, all the stuff, none of it worked. America elected Trump. But what we know is the Russians had dirt on Hillary. And why did they pull their entire program that they were working on? Because they do it to every election. We do the same thing. They do the same thing. You mess with people's elections. But they pulled out just before the election. Why did they pull out? Because apparently Putin had that dirt on Hillary, that he knew things about her, buying the problems of the power and the medications and the diabetes and all the stuff that was going on with her. They said, hey, she gets elected, we got something to use on her. Because they figured she was going to win too. That's the problem. They thought she was going to win. Well, she didn't. So here's what happens. Now it comes around December. And there the problem is, Obama says, hey, we got to have a meeting. We got to have a meeting here and get stuff going on. Well, the folks over at all the intelligence agencies, there's 17 of them, they prepared a dossier about information for the president called the PDF, Presidential Daily Brief. And they were going to say Russians and Clinton were not involved. Clinton and the Russians and Trump, not in pair. They ain't doing anything. There's nothing going on between the two of them. They're not involved. This was the intelligence agencies all saying this. Well, they have the meeting. And in the meeting, Clapper's there and the other folks are there. And they decided to hold off on that presidential brief because Donald Trump was now getting the same one because he has been elected president. He gets the same briefing. Let's not send it to him. So they get together at this meeting, and later, Brennan walks out and says, CIA, hey, we need to redo the brief. We need to find out Trump's involved with something. His people and all that. No, he's not. He's not. He shunned them all. Said, sorry, we're going to talk to somebody else. And they said finally, hey, Trump was involved with Russia. That's what they went on. That's where everything went south, folks. That's where everything's happened. And now all of that is being dug up. Now all of that is coming out. John, remember he was the special prosecutor? Spent $40 million, 3 years? Didn't find anything. Turns out he had a very classified notes, footnotes, if you will. And those footnotes are being released because now you're going to learn some more stuff. Now, will anybody be charged? That's a very interesting question. You say, well, statute of limitations is 10 years, or 5 years rather, statute of federal crimes. But conspiracy, that lasts a long time. And is conspiracy still going on to keep things covered, keep things hidden? Some would say yes. Will anybody be charged in Washington, D.C.? Will anybody be indicted? Will evidence be given to grand juries? And will a grand jury in Washington indict anyone? That's a very good question. Nobody knows yet, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Pam Bondi wants to get this stuff out there, and Grassley, Senator Grassley of Iowa, is releasing information involving that classified stuff from the Brennan book. It's all coming out, but will the TV networks, will the alphabet networks ever cover this? Not sure. I can tell you right now, more dirt is coming. They may say, oh, that's old news, but things are being dug up that were hidden intentionally. And it all started with burn bags in a hidden room at the FBI that somebody didn't burn. But now the information in those burn bags is becoming public. Will a conspiracy happen? Will people be charged? Folks, that's another day, another time. But maybe, just maybe, it may not happen at all. It's Washington, folks, where everybody gets away with everything.